When we talk about the giants of Hollywood's golden age, few names loom larger than Joan Crawford and John Wayne. They came from vastly different backgrounds, played entirely different types of roles, and appealed to different audiences. And yet, they both rose to the very top of the film industry, becoming enduring icons whose legacies still echo across pop culture today. Let's start with Joan Crawford, a name that evokes images of intense glamour, determination, and ambition. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur in San Antonio, Texas, in 1904, Crawford's life was never easy. Abandoned by her father and raised in poverty, she worked her way up from being a dancer in traveling shows to becoming a contract star at MGM. She was known for reinventing herself again and again, through silent films, talkies, and beyond. By the 1930s, Crawford had become a symbol of the modern American woman. She often played ambitious, working-class girls who climbed the social ladder. In real life, she did exactly the same thing. With her piercing eyes, strong features, and commanding presence, she exuded strength and glamour in equal measure. But beneath the polished image was a woman driven by an almost relentless desire to succeed. Crawford starred in more than 80 films across 5 decades. From Grand Hotel to Mildred Pierce, she transformed herself into a range of powerful women: mothers, lovers, schemers, and survivors. Her performance in Mildred Pierce won her the Academy Award for Best Actress and marked a high point in her career. She was never content with being just another starlet. She wanted and achieved greatness. And then we have John Wayne. Born Marion Robert Morrison in 1907 in Winterset, Iowa, he was the very picture of rugged American masculinity. Where Crawford's path to fame was filled with glamour and studio polish, Wayne's came through grit and persistence. He started out as a prop boy in Extra, slowly working his way into larger roles. His big break came in 1939 with John Ford's Stagecoach, which launched him into stardom as the ultimate cowboy hero. Over the next 4 decades, Wayne starred in more than 150 films, mostly westerns and war epics. He became the embodiment of American strength, independence, and justice. With his slow drawl, towering frame, and steady gaze, Wayne represented the kind of stoic hero Hollywood and America loved. Wayne's most iconic films: The Searchers, True Grit, Red River, The Quiet Man, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, cemented his status not just as a movie star, but as a symbol. He wasn't just playing cowboys. He was playing ideals. He was what many Americans believed they were, or wanted to be. Now, at first glance, Joan Crawford and John Wayne couldn't have been more different. She was polished, elegant, urban, queen of the Hollywood melodrama. He was dusty, rough, rural, king of the frontier. She moved through drawing rooms and noir shadows. He rode horses through the desert. But if you look closer, the two shared far more in common than you might think. Both were deeply ambitious. Both built their careers through sheer force of will. Neither came from privilege, and neither had a smooth road to the top. They fought for every inch of success they had, and they stayed on top because they knew how to adapt, how to work, and how to endure. Crawford was famous for her intense preparation. She would arrive on set knowing not only her lines, but everyone else's. She controlled her image carefully, understanding the power of costume, lighting, and camera angles better than anyone. She treated every role like a battle to be won, and more often than not, she won. Wayne, too, was a perfectionist. Though he often played simple, straightforward characters, he was deeply involved in every aspect of his films. He learned the mechanics of camera work, studied scripts closely, and worked closely with directors. He wasn't just playing the role, he was living it. And as a producer, he was hands-on and exacting. Interestingly, both stars made successful transitions during periods when many others faded. Crawford moved from MGM to Warner Brothers, taking on darker, more dramatic roles in the 1940s and 50s. As she aged, she embraced roles that reflected the complexity and toughness of her own life. In Sudden Fear, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and Straight Jacket, she leaned into horror, suspense, and psychological drama, showing audiences a new kind of aging star, still powerful, still terrifying, still brilliant. Wayne, too, aged gracefully on screen. He didn't try to pretend he was still young. He played older characters, wiser, sometimes weaker, but always principled. In True Grit, The role that finally earned him an Oscar, he portrayed Rooster Cogburn, a grizzled lawman who's rough around the edges but heroic at heart. It was a performance that acknowledged age without surrendering to it. Another thing they shared, a complicated personal life that often made headlines. Crawford was famously private, but rumors swirled around her marriages, her relationships, and especially her children. Her adopted daughter, Christina, wrote a controversial memoir, Mommy Dearest, which painted Crawford as an abusive, manipulative parent. While some questioned its accuracy, it permanently affected public perception. One of the most fascinating things about Crawford and Wayne is how their images helped define gender in classic Hollywood. Crawford was the epitome of feminine strength, always glamorous, always powerful, never passive. She played women who controlled their fate, who fought, who suffered, and who survived. She didn't play weak victims. She played warriors in pearls. Wayne, by contrast, was the ultimate masculine ideal. He was silent rather than chatty, physical rather than emotional, and always in control. His characters rarely cried, rarely doubted, and rarely surrendered. And yet, in his best films, he brought subtlety and sadness to those roles. Quiet moments of vulnerability that made his strength feel earned. Although they never co-starred in a film, Crawford and Wayne did appear together publicly on several occasions, most notably at industry events, charity galas, and award shows. They shared mutual respect and represented opposing but complementary forces in Hollywood storytelling. She, the dramatic core. He, the heroic edge. Imagine, for a moment, if they had starred together. What kind of film could have captured both of their energies? A Western noir, perhaps, where Crawford played a frontier widow with secrets and Wayne the sheriff torn between duty and desire. The chemistry would have been electric, her intensity matched by his stillness, her fire balanced by his calm. In many ways, they were two sides of the same coin. Both were products of the studio system, yet both outlasted it. They began in black and white and continued into Technicolor. They went from youthful upstarts to elder statesmen of film. And when the new Hollywood emerged in the late 1960s and 70s, they both left behind legacies too vast to be ignored. Joan Crawford passed away in 1977, leaving behind a filmography that stretched across 5 decades. Despite the controversy, her influence remained strong. Actresses from Faye Dunaway to Jessica Lange to Cate Blanchett have cited her as in. John Wayne died 2 years later in 1979. His funeral was attended by hundreds, and even today, he remains one of the most recognized American film figures of all time. His voice, his gait, his stance, they've all become part of American cinematic mythology. He's not just remembered, he's revered. Their stars still shine on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Their films are still watched, taught, discussed, and dissected. And their stories, rising from hardship, overcoming obstacles, redefining fame, still inspire. They were proof that you didn't have to be born into privilege to make it big. That talent, discipline, and relentless work could shape not just a career, but an era. They were more than actors. They were institutions. So, when we look back at Golden Age Hollywood, we see Joan Crawford and John Wayne not just as legends, but as forces opposing in style, but united in power. She wore heels. He wore boots. She spoke with precision. He drawled with grit. She ruled the city. He tamed the frontier. And both changed Hollywood forever. Their images live on in posters, biographies, retrospectives, and most importantly, in the films they left behind. And in those films, we see the full range of human ambition, love, pain, and resilience. Because that's what great stars do. They don't just act, they endure. And Joan Crawford and John Wayne, they will always endure.